What's the deal with
Seraphon models? Hello, all you chameleon skinks and croxagores. My name is Salamander. Seraphon are probably the greatest example in Age of Sigmar of the model lines not matching up with the lore. They have some of the coolest lore that most naturally builds off of its Warhammer Fantasy counterpart that is sadly dragged down by one of the most outdated model lines in the entire game. But in order to explain what I mean, we need a little history lesson. Age of Sigmar is Games Workshop's largely successful attempt at revitalizing Warhammer Fantasy after it had been languishing in obscurity for decades, most people only vaguely knowing it as that one fantasy thing Warhammer 40k borrows its name from. After spending 2 decades as the fail son of the two brothers Warhammer, GW decided to destroy it all and start over from scratch. Thus heralded the coming of Games Workshop's newest, most ambitious, and certainly most risky project probably ever: Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Now, when Age of Sigmar was first being created, they obviously had to create armies for the game, and since Age of Sigmar was being posited as a direct sequel to Warhammer Fantasy, many of the armies in the games were themed around older model lines. Some, like the Ironjaws, received many new models, but were very much themed around Black Orcs from Fantasy. Others, meanwhile, were composed almost entirely of an old army's model line lifted wholesale. One of these armies is the Seraphon, and the switching from past tense to present tense is very apt, because the Seraphon are still like this. The vast majority of Seraphon models are ripped directly from the old Lizardmen model line. Which creates this disconnect, because Seraphon in lore are a race of spacefaring ancient star lizards who ride around in spaceships and wage a war against chaos that has gone on for longer than even time can recollect. They are enigmas to their allies in the Grand Alliance of Order, and living nightmares to the forces of chaos, killing machines bred specifically to hunt them across the universe. And the translation of this lore on the tabletop, the depiction of the paladins who fight in this great holy war across the stars, is a guy with like a stick, or a guy with a stick riding a lizard. Yeah, there's no way for me to beat around the bush with this. These guys are underwhelming. You have supernatural predatory hunters made of space dust who ride around in spaceships in a never-ending war against Lovecraftian gods of death and misery, and their most advanced infantry weapon is a fucking blow dart. The thing I love so much about Age of Sigmar is that it often feels like Warhammer Fantasy put through a glam metal filter, with giant 80s hair and leg warmers. In comparison, though, the Seraphon are still just the Lizardmen. The Fire Slayers are slayers, but now they're mercenaries fighting to resurrect a dead god, who ride on lava lizards and live in volcanoes. The Sylvaneth are wood elves, but now are angry spirits of vengeance for the mistreatment of nature by the forces of chaos, living embodiments of the rage of a slowly dying universe. These are old world armies who have been re-envisioned and reimagined as something new, an extension of the themes and ideas from their original form, but expanded upon in a more high fantasy, less Tolkienian setting. Meanwhile, the lore tells me that the Seraphon are ancient, cold-blooded celestial lizards who hunt the forces of chaos with a never-ending dedication, who twist and turn the very stars against their foes as they bring down unmatched wrath and ferocity upon the ruinous powers. But the version of that exists on the tabletop is still just the Lizardmen. Still the same Croxagores, the same Skinks, the same Saurus, making them look shockingly mundane and out of place with the rest of Age of Sigmar's vibrant, loud, and high fantasy armies. And that's the deal with Seraphon models. A special thanks to my patrons, whose names are on screen now. If you like this style of content, be sure to let me know by liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment down below on Twitter or on my patron-exclusive Discord server. This is a new kind of content that I want to experiment more with. You know, shorter, more bite-sized versions of the larger video essays I typically produce. So let me know what you thought and how you think I can do better next time. Have a good day.